Let's talk a bit about two-dimensional geometry. We have to determine some vocabulary before we're able to go on with this. So first of all, when we talk about perimeter, perimeter is the distance on the outside or around a two-dimensional shape. So a common unit that we use would be meters. Next, we're going to define area. Area is the space inside of a two-dimensional shape. So this is the area inside of the shape. You'll notice that this is expressed in meters squared. When you see the square always relates to the fact that it's 2D. Now here we have a cylinder. A cylinder isn't part of two-dimensional geometry. In fact, it is three-dimensional geometry, and we use volume to calculate the capacity of a 3D shape. And you'll notice that in a 3D shape, we use the units meters cubed to talk about our volume. The cube refers to the two-dimensional shape. And lastly, we have surface area. Surface area is related to a 3D object, but it is a two-dimensional unit in itself because surface area is the space on the surface of a three-dimensional shape. So I'm not talking about what's inside, but rather if I undid all of these, then it would be the space that it takes up, and we're using meters squared now. Circles are a little bit special, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about circles before we do our example. This is a circle, and right in the middle, I've put a dot in the center. The diameter is the length that's through the center. So this is important because this is the length that we're going to be using to calculate different things. We have the radius, and the radius is half of the diameter, or you could say it's a line that comes from the center to the outside of the circle. And lastly, we have circumference. Circumference is a bit of a fancy word to say perimeter of the circle. So we're just talking about the distance around the circle. We have two equations that we can use. We could use circumference is equal to pi times d, or we could say circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. Now these are the same because I know that half of the diameter is equal to radius. So if I have 2r, or 2 times the r, that would be equivalent to a diameter. Now we're going to review a couple of area equations as well. When we have a rectangle or a square, our area is length times width. Just multiply the two sides together. When I have a circle, in this one, I'm actually interested only in the radius. Area of a circle is pi r squared. Multiply all of those together and we get the area. Third, we have our triangle, and the triangle is half base times height. So the base could be any side of the triangle, but the height has to create a 90-degree angle with the base in order for it to qualify as a height. Now we're going to talk a bit about composite area. A composite shape is a figure that's composed of several basic shapes. So if we look at this shape here, we have a rectangle, we have a triangle, and we have a semicircle. So let's find the area of that shape. And when we're calculating the area, all the measurements have to be in the same units. So the issue here is we've got meters, whereas these are in centimeters. So we're going to have to convert it into centimeters so that we can find the area. So for our rectangle, area would be length times width, 4 meters times 25 centimeters. But I need to convert meters into centimeters, so that is 400 centimeters times 25 centimeters. When I multiply that, that's equal to 10,000 centimeters squared. Now, it's very important to remember the square so that we know we're discussing area. I'm going to take the triangle next, and I forgot to draw the little box here to show that it's a 90-degree angle. But let's assume that this is a 90-degree angle, then we can use half base times height. I've rewritten half as a decimal, 0.5. I'm taking my base of 14 times the height of 24, and that's equal to 168 centimeters squared. Finally, I'm going to take the semicircle. Now, a circle is pi r squared, but since it's only half of the circle, I'm going to take half pi r squared. So I rewrite half as 0.5 times 3.14 times 7 squared. Multiplying it all together gives us 76.93 centimeters squared. We have the area of all of the parts. Now we need the total area. We're going to add the rectangle, triangle, and semicircle together for us to have our entire area. So 10,244.93 centimeters squared. And that's the end of this tutorial.